Welcome to the Communicate on Purpose podcast. My name is Matt Curtis, and I'm your host. You're listening to episode 11 of season 3. This week, I want to talk about a strategy that I have. I don't know if it's developed or discovered or seen or kind of where it falls in that spectrum. But when you're rolling out a new initiative, it's sometimes tricky to get adoption and to get buy-in. I found often that change is very scary and change is very hard for ministry leaders for a lot of different reasons. But the thing that I've found to be very important and helpful when it comes to initiating a new change is to build the solution that you're moving to before you take away the solution that you're relying on. And so really what that means in terms of your strategy is talk about what's coming, talk about what's new, but don't remove what is existing and working, or in some cases not working well. What you want to do is you want to allow ministry leaders to see, to compare and contrast the pros and cons of the two systems that you're moving, or the one that you have and the one that you're moving toward. Now, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily giving them the option of staying on the previous system, but what it does is it eases the transition. See, a lot of what fear is born out of is the fear that they won't be able to do the job that they need to do. And so in the ministry context, you're talking about some pretty serious things. You're talking about eternality. You're talking about the eternal well-being of the people that they're ministering to. And in other cases, you're talking about a marriage surviving or not surviving. And so these are serious problems that people are dealing with. And so if they feel like the events that are the gateways to help people get through those things, if they feel like nobody's going to hear about those things, that's in a lot of ways, it's like catastrophic to the ministry leaders. And so if you can instead build the solution that you're moving to and say, hey, this is going to be something that's better for your ministries, it'll allow them to see it. I've often struggled with the fact that people don't think abstract like I do. And so I'll come to the table with some, bizarre ideas or some, very kind of future-oriented solutions, and people will just turn and look like, bro, what are you talking about? So a practical example of this, back when Facebook was just sort of taking off, this was the era of you needed to have a school email address in order to sign up. That was kind of the season of time that we're talking about here. The church where I was serving had a printed magazine, and it was distributed out to all the people who had signed up to be on the mailing list from the church. It was expensive. We saw the writing on the wall that printed media wasn't going to be the most consumed methodology for content. And so that plus the expense of it really became clear to us that moving into the future would be a good idea. And so we put together a plan to move over to Facebook. So we were now transitioning out of the era of school address only. And we were like that. I think that had been announced maybe it was already in place, but we recognized that Facebook was going to become a very common destination for people, not just students. And so we wanted to be there. We wanted to create content specifically for Facebook so that we could connect with our people that way, and we could continue distributing the content that we felt to be valuable that we were distributing through the magazine. So we pitched it to leadership, and sad trombone noise like you wouldn't believe. Nobody was interested at all. Not at all. Not even a little bit. And so I just remember being frustrated. The last 2 episodes talking about how emotions and stress and all of those things come up. Yeah, I could write some notes based on how I felt after that conversation about Facebook. And so my boss and I talked about it, and he said, you know what? If none of them want to do it, if none of them want to participate, why don't you do it? And I just remember thinking, what? I'm just a designer. I draw pictures. That's what I do. But we put together a plan. And so for an entire year, I recorded a video alternating weeks, and then I wrote a blog post on the weeks where there wasn't a video. So 52 weeks out of the year, I was creating one piece of content, and it was a reflection back on the weekend service. That's all it was. We're talking 3 to 5 minutes, maybe. And it was, this weekend was really powerful for me. This is something that I learned. This is a lesson that kind of resonated with me. This is a story that I have from my own life where I feel like this kind of dovetails with what they were talking about. I hope that this was helpful for you in connecting these dots All my goal was to help people remember the message one more time. So you go to church for an hour 15, and then you're done for the rest of the week. Why can we not like bring back some of that information that they learned? And so that was the goal. It wasn't, revival. It wasn't, anything wildly ambitious. Just, hey, let's remind them about the word of God that they heard. And so we did that. And we ended up growing the page. Like it just kept growing. And it was really exciting. And once we reached, I don't remember how large it was. It was either around 4,000 people that were following our page or 6,500. I forget which one. But I mean, a good amount of people were following, actually more than the congregation. So there was something going on there. Once we built it, then leadership came and they said, hey, we want to take advantage of what you've built by doing these things. And so it was really interesting to me because it taught me that sometimes it's hard for people to see the vision of what's coming. I think in the communication space, in the creative space in particular, as a broad kind of umbrella, I think graphic designers are really good at this. I say that because I was one. I'm sure video people and web devs are that way too. Maybe, I don't know. But all I can do is speak of, where I come from. But the people who are generally in that creative space tend to have a little bit more ability to say, these are trends that are coming, and these are behaviors of our people today. I think this one's going to stick. I think this one's really going to resonate with them. I think that one is going to be something that we should invest in. And so by doing that, we created the solution. And now they could see the power of it. Now they could see the potential of it. Now they could see the potential impact by leveraging it. And so I think it's helpful for us to really focus on identifying those things in our space appropriately. We can't build everything. We shouldn't build everything. And then beginning the process of building and developing the solution rather than just waiting on everybody else to jump on board, because it's going to be hard for them to do that. And so when it comes to now the potential of pulling something away, it's a really good idea to build your solution before you fully pull the rug out from under people, because otherwise they'll react from fear. And I've seen that too. I've seen it where some ministry initiatives get shut down strictly because of fear. It's just because people are afraid of what will happen, afraid of the consequences of those decisions, afraid of what it means for them, afraid of them not being able to promote their ministry enough, afraid of some hypothetical problem that they've invented in their head, like, oh, but what if this and this and this and this happens? Like, well, I mean, that's a really weird situation. I don't think that would, but if it did, can't we just like react to that single situation rather than prevent a good solution from moving forward? I mean, sorry, like fear wins. And so it's a practice that I've seen necessary in order to move ideas forward. And it's one that just helps you as you care for your people. Like that's another way that I like to look at it, is I really want to be high care with the people that work with me. And so if somebody's having a hard time, I don't want to just say, bro, get over it. Like I want to say, okay, well, let's talk about it. Like, what is it that's difficult for you? That's interesting. So you feel like you're going to be losing the ability to communicate with your people. Okay, well, how can I help you navigate that? Like, how can I help you figure out solutions to still continue? So we were changing the size of our program at one point, our bulletin. And this was a question that came up. It was, I'm concerned because we're not going to have as much real estate to promote. And so I knew that was going to come up. So I picked the most full bulletin, and I replicated, like I literally copy and pasted all of the content from that one. And I reformatted the page, changing font sizes. It was still readable, but changing font sizes and layouts and, limiting images, things like that. And what I was able to do is I was able to include all of the same content on the page. So as soon as I presented it to people, I knew that fear would speak first, and it did. What happens when it's the most busy time of the year? And then I could say with honesty and confidence, this is all of the content from the busiest program that we've ever had. So we can accommodate everything that we have been able to in the past. And it's just like mind blown. Like, oh, okay. And like it sort of neutralized the fear. But again, this was because we were thinking through how people felt about the things that we were presenting. And so we're really looking to try to short circuit that fear, try to neutralize it before we got into that conversation. And so you can do that by thinking ahead towards what is the thing that they'll be afraid of, and also by building solutions before you implement them. So just a little thing that's kind of been on my mind lately in the midst of change, in the midst of just new things. There's a season of ministry that we're in right now that's just riddled with new, and I'm watching the church push as hard as humanly possible to get back to the old, and it just isn't, like, we just can't, like, there's not a way to go back to what we were before COVID. And so as you're operating in this creative space, or as a communications person, or wherever you sit organizationally, understand that you're working with a lot of afraid people, and that the way that you approach change can help lead them out of fear. That's a pretty powerful contribution to the organization. It doesn't mean that you're going to get everything that you think is the right thing. It doesn't mean that you're going to become an organization that adapts well, or adopts the latest things, or moves in alignment with the trends that you believe to be impactful. But it does mean that they'll feel cared for in the midst of the process. And it means that your voice will speak more loudly than it did before, because they recognize that you're not there to just represent the new technology, but you're there to care for them in the process of going through that transition. As you hear this, I hope this is helpful. I hope this is an encouragement to you. I hope you feel like there's a degree of your being seen in the work that you're doing, because I see the work that you're doing. I really do. I'm slugging away in my own space of trying to help the church adapt to online ministry and to find the appropriate place of it in their organization. Not that it should threaten the in-person, but instead that it should be an ally and a meaningful piece of ministry for the capital C Church. And so I'm facing these tensions, I'm facing these challenges, I'm facing a lot of resistance in this space as well. And so know that the work that you're doing is good work. Know that I'm rooting for you. Know that there are a lot of people rooting for you. And so keep doing what you're doing. Keep engaging in the ministry that you're engaging in, and be confident that God's still working in the midst of what seems like a complicated series of no's, and we don't want to move forward. God's still working. He knows what's going on. He's aware of it. And so kind of take a deep breath and just exhale, give it to God, and keep doing what you can to care for the people that you're in the trenches with. If this is helpful, share it with a friend, a colleague, somebody that you think that this would be an encouragement to. Write a review on whatever service you're listening to. That's always helpful and an encouragement as we do that. And then reach out, connect with me on the different socials. I've been more active on LinkedIn probably than anywhere. And so if you want to follow things like that, I'm not posting I would consider it to be the cheesy LinkedIn stuff, hopefully, of I saw a dog on the side of the road and he was injured, so I helped him and was late to my interview, and it turns out the dog was the one conducting the interview. That's one of my favorite kind of jokes about LinkedIn. But hopefully helping the church in that space. But I'd love to connect with you and hear how things are going in your ministry. It's always a pleasure. So it's at mcurtis_co or .co or co, whatever it is. It's the different platforms have the different convention, but that's the thing. Until next week, keep communicating on purpose.